Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk, Israel National Radio. Today, the 23rd day of Menachem Av, 5774. It's August 19th, 2014, the Shabbat, parashat Re'eh, C. It's also Shabbat Mevarchim, the Sabbath of the blessing of the new moon. Believe it or not, it is the eve of the month of Elul. The month of Elul is approaching so quick. Another year has gone by. And next week, in fact, next Tuesday and Wednesday is Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the new month of Elul, which of course is the vestibule that leads to the High Holy Days, the time of intense preparation for getting ready to meet the King. And all through these Torah portions, Moshe, as we've been discussing, is on a different footing altogether than the rest of the Torah. The first 4 books of the 5 books of Moshe are considered to be one level of communication from the mouth of Hashem, as it were. And this 5th book of the Torah is on a different level. It is the redactment, is that the word?
I'll go for it.
Of like Moshe. That. As he prepares the children of Israel in his final weeks before leaving this world, he prepares them for coming into the land. He also is reviewing, but also there are elements of prophecy regarding the future, all sorts of things. And
it's like a best of.
This week's Torah portion begins with the concept of the blessing and the curse, and how it's something that you're able to see tangibly. It doesn't really make so much sense, the first verse. See, I present before you today a blessing and a curse. Because, and we've discussed this, the idea that, we're talking about a spiritual concept, and yet it is being assigned a physical sense. So apparently it is something that can actually be discerned and seen. The difference between the blessing and the curse, the blessing being that we will listen to the mitzvot of Hashem. Obviously, Moshe was extremely concerned about us, about our generation, about every subsequent generation for the rest of time, about these neshamot, the children of Israel, and what the future holds, because over and over again he is exhorting them, us, that is, in the book of Devarim, that we should stay with the program. And now he's saying the program is the blessing. The blessing is that we should hearken to the commandments of Hashem, and the curse will happen if we do not hearken to the commandments of Hashem and stray from the path. And then he refers, of course, to the blessing and the curse that are to take place in the presence of Israel, that whole ceremony described in the book of Joshua that they are to do as soon as they come into the land. Har Gerizim and Har Evel, Mount Gerizim and Mount Evel, which actually are very close to Shechem. In fact, the valley that they form, these 2 mountains, is the location of the city of Nablus. All this is just a stone's throw away from the community of Itamar, where we are closely involved, and Elon Moreh and Har Bracha, all the beautiful Jewish communities in the heartland and Samaria. It's really amazing also that, there have been a number of very articulate exhortations in the book of Devarim until now, that Moshe is warning against different forms of idolatry and different forms of straying from the path. And at the same time, he's been, in a way that, evokes such pathos and such tremendous, a feeling for us of such, I don't know what to call it, a certain pathos is the only word, frustration for him, that he's describing the land of Israel, the land that he is not going to see from within, although he did see it last week, as describing that Hashem showed it to him from every side, by the way, which is, as we mentioned, kind of funny. It makes it sound like he's already in the middle of it if he's looking east, north, south, and west. But he's describing, like last week, the beauty of and the virtues and the physical blessing and bounty of the land of Israel. And he's talking about it with such tremendous love. And now there's a new gear being shifted, and now he's talking again about the sanctity of the land, and the way that he is expressing immediately in this parashat Re'eh, that begins in Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verse 26, and now I'm talking about the beginning of chapter 12 of Deuteronomy. The way he expresses the sanctity is by saying that because it is so holy, and you are to keep these mitzvot and observe them in the land that Hashem, the God of your forefathers, has given you, then because of this you have to destroy all of the remnants of idolatry that are in the land. And that it's just so stark that again, another warning right away now in the very beginning of this parsha. Again, another warning. The first thing that you have to do is you have to get rid of the remnants of all these places where various idols were worshipped, and various types of social gatherings in society, and licentious meetings and all sorts of things that took place under every leafy tree, and breaking apart their altars and smashing the pillars, and all these things, carved images, sacred trees, all has to be cut down and obliterated in order to establish the sanctity of the land. And in this week's Torah portion, what's exciting to note is that now we begin to get the message, the idea of the Holy Temple. It's in this week's Torah portion as Moshe is increasing the velocity and upping the caliber of his love song, and of course a love song also contains rebuke to his children, and the love song that he is now expressing of the land of Israel, and he's been talking about the beauty of the land and the blessing of the land and the connection between the Jewish people and the land, and now he's warning about the sanctity, and because it is so sacred, don't try what the other people did there and get rid of all of that. But regarding Hashem, regarding the Lord your God, at that place that he will choose from among all your tribes to place his name, there shall you seek out his presence and come there. And several times in this Torah portion, we encounter this idea: it shall be that the place where Hashem, your God, will choose to rest his name. And this is the place that was actually chosen by Hashem. If you want to go all the way back in the timeline, from the very beginning, it was actually before anything existed, before creation. And this is an idea that the Talmud reflects upon. There were a number of, as it were, concepts that Hashem thought about. That's the expression, the primordial thought, before even bringing forth creation from nothing. And one of them is the location of the Holy Temple. We know that the relationship between the site of the Holy Temple, which today, of course, is referred to as the Temple Mount, Mount Moriah, which we report about constantly, the current situation there. The relationship between all mankind and the site of the Temple Mount is so inexorable and so irrevocably, or would you like to say irrevocably, bound up, because in addition to the fact that on a supernal level, on a spiritual level, the site of the Holy Temple is actually parallel to the location of the Garden of Eden itself, whatever that means for the time being. Let's leave that. But also the site of the altar upon which Abraham bound Isaac, and Jacob laid his head and saw the vision of the ladder, etc., et al. All the ancients, the tzaddikim that had their encounters there with God, Noach, Cain, and Abel, everybody who built an altar in that place, that is the location of the birthplace, the very birthplace of Adam Harishon, the first man himself. So the relationship that we have, then, that all humanity has with the Temple Mount, is ancient. It's more ancient than is time, than is days, because it's from before time. And then Hashem brought forth the world into creation, that place being the center of creation and the center of man's endeavor to return, as it were, to the Garden of Eden, to fix himself, to fix this world. It all centers around the service in the Holy Temple, and its location was known from the very beginning, right? When Hashem said to Avraham, go to the place that I will show you, and then he's going to Eretz Moriah, right? Eretz Moriah, the land of Moriah. There's no such land called the land of Moriah, but the sanctity, the holiness of Mount Moriah is so great that it spreads out and it affects the whole land. Did I tell you that my new granddaughter's name is Moriah?
Sure did.
Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it was known, but then later in history, see this, and this is like this mystery that the Kabbalists talk about, the tremendous spiritual significance and power of the fact that in the Torah itself, in the 5 books of Moshe, it's not mentioned by name. Rather, it's referred to in this very elusive and cryptic way, the place that I will show you, the place that I will choose. But the truth is, and this is again that incredible, integral, interwoven relationship between the written Torah and the oral tradition, which is sacred, which is the same sanctity because it was given simultaneously, and it was given over to Moshe, the in between the lines of the shorthand that Hashem gave over, which was his inimitable, ultimate wisdom way of keeping the Torah alive and encouraging the process of questioning and study. So this place was known, the place that I will show you, the place that I will choose, had been chosen from the very beginning of time. And then later, when David was fleeing Saul, and he was together with Samuel the prophet, they established and fixed, as it were, meaning they were kovea, right? They established as a principle in biblical law forever that is the place of Mount Moriah, which of course again was the original place of Adam HaRishon and the Avot and the forefathers. And here it's referred to as the place that I will choose. So in a way, Moshe is showing a kind of a kaleidoscope into the future, and it's also at the same time as it is getting to be a broader picture, it's also getting to be a more minute and more detailed picture of the future, as he's giving over this program to the children of Israel, saying you're going to go in and you've got to upkeep, you've got to safeguard the sanctity of the land, and the center of that is the place that I will choose, the place that I will show you. And it's only in that place that you will be able to bring your burnt offerings, feast offerings, your tithes, and what you raise up with your hands, the choices of your vow offerings that you will vow to Hashem, and that's where you're going to rejoice. And what is that all about? What it's all about, people, right? Because again, some guys might say, we're not agriculturalists. We're not farmers. We don't raise animals, and we're not an agrarian society, and all this biblical phraseology is about your offerings and your tithes and everything like that, and coming there, and what's this all about? And what it's all about is that the power of what happens in this place, the power of what happens when man is in this sacred place that Hashem chose from the very beginning, is that it brings everything back to Hashem himself, and it validates the human condition, and it leaves an indelible mark on the human spirit of spiritual accomplishment and the realization of potential, the most precious thing of all being, wow, he knows who I am by name, I have a relationship with him. There's nothing here that's on cruise control. One of the greatest powers that we're up against in the world today is this tremendous lack of faith, this tremendous doubt. And whether you call it a belief in all the various scientific and neo terms that people have about how the universe was created and everything else, this is what is the cause of so much of the decay of the fabric of human society that we have today. And Hashem is telling us here through Moshe, you're going to come into the land of Israel, and it's not the same as any other place, and you're not the same as anybody else, and I don't expect from you the same as anyone else. I expect you to constantly be focused on me. All of a sudden here in this week's Torah portion, we have for the first time permission to eat meat that is not an offering in the Holy Temple. It's a sign of prosperity, the way the Torah describes it here, that when Hashem your God will broaden your boundary, and then you have a desire to eat meats, then now all of a sudden, it's, obviously in the time of the desert wandering, everything was different. And with the exception of the time that they were provided meat, they ate the man. And now they're coming into the land of Israel. And Moshe is telling them that you're going to be able to eat meat, of course, according to Hashem's very exacting rules and the total admonition, the forbidden blood, and how the meat has to be cleansed and processed because a Jew is not allowed to consume even a drop of blood, and the whole idea of kashrut. We have this permission to eat meat in the land of Israel. And then one of the most amazing things in the whole Torah portion, which is so just requires an explanation and it kind of shouts out at you, is this whole idea here about the false prophet. Someone that comes along and says, why don't we try to experiment with various practices like the people who used to live here, the previous owners, like they did things. Maybe there's another way to reach God. Maybe there's another type of, nirvana, whatever. Maybe there's a way that we can have some sort of spiritual experience. And he gives you some sort of sign, some sort of wonder. But yet he is coming and he's saying, no, you have to do away with this or that mitzvah. And he comes to uproot a commandment from the Torah. What is that all about? The Torah says here that it's a test. We're going to be talking about this at length in this week's video Torah portion. Parashat Re'eh, the idea of the false prophet. But again, it's part of this complex theme that Moshe is weaving in Parashat Re'eh, this warning. A warning against sullying the sanctity of the land of Israel, an exhortation in the beginning of the parsha that as soon as you come in, the first thing that you have to do is get rid of the remnants of every type of idolatry. And now this very unusual, very, very enigmatic warning about a false prophet and one who entices other people to go astray, and even a whole city that is referred to as a wayward city, and how they have to be treated in case they try and bring this foreign culture of idolatry, whatever that means exactly, into the land of Israel. This is a subject that needs to be treated at length, and we're going to, under separate cover. And then in chapter 14, the very beginning, we have this incredible verse. You are children to Hashem your God. And Yitchak, other than the time in Exodus where Hashem says to tell Pharaoh, my son, my firstborn Israel, this is actually the only verse in the Chumash, in the 5 books of Moshe, that specifically calls the children of Israel the children of Hashem. And interestingly, the context is, you are children to Hashem your God. You shall not cut yourselves, and you shall not make a bald spot between your eyes for a dead person. This is also a form of idolatry, a form of this hysterical emotional response that people have to death, that they would lacerate themselves, that they would make some sort of a permanent mark on their bodies in mourning. And Hashem is saying, you can't do that because I am your father. So if your father were to pass away and you would be so affected, you don't seem to understand it. You are my children ultimately, and we are always connected. And you have to carry that that has to carry over in your body, that you always have to be whole. And then the verse in 14:2 continues, for you are a holy people to Hashem your God, and Hashem has chosen you for himself to be a treasured people from among all the peoples on the face of the earth. There you have it. You got to tell George Galloway and all these other people that Hashem says right there that Israel is to be a treasured people from among all the peoples on the face of the earth. But that doesn't entitle us to any discounts. That's the problem. It doesn't mean what some people might think it means. It doesn't mean that we have a get-out-of-jail-free card. In fact, it means that we are responsible to uplift all of humanity. I'd like to give a very short summary, since some people are still counting, and they call this Day 43 in Operation Protective Edge, and we're still waiting to hear, is there an official ceasefire? Isn't there an official ceasefire? So, in the light of everything that we've been discussing until now, and the awesome power, magnitude, beauty of Moshe's words in this week's Torah portion, see the blessing and the curse. See it with your own eyes. You are a treasured people. You are Hashem's children. There's only one way for you, and that's hearkening to the commandments. That is the blessing when you come into this land and do them. And all of these warnings about imitating others. I have one thing to say. In summary, some people are saying we should have done more. Maybe we still will. Are they going to be demilitarized? Are we going to retake Gaza? Are we going to be living with this danger forever of these monsters that are trying to kill us? The bottom line is, you know what? Under intense, immense, and totally unfair international pressure, led by the United States of America, in 2005, Israel disengaged from Gaza. And in the wake of that, a vacuum was created, and into that vacuum stepped a terrorist state that is totally dedicated around the clock, as the tunnels, etc., illustrate, totally dedicated to destroying Israel. And what happened now in Operation Protective Edge, as we are witness to the greatest upswing, the worst upswing of anti-Semitism since the Second World War, and all the horrible things that are going on all over the world, and the reaction to Israel's asserting its right to live, and its reaction to the 3,300 rockets that were fired against its citizens, all of which were intended and designed to kill. What's going on now is that instead of appreciating and supporting Israel, instead of the international community being at Israel's side because we were forced to withdraw from Gaza, and now the terrorists that we gave it to are trying to destroy us, and it's clear to everyone, right? Instead of supporting Israel, Israel has become vilified and abandoned, basically, and isolated and demonized by the very same international community who urged Israel to do this very, very thing. So instead of appreciating what Israel's going through, instead now Israel is still the monster. And I think it's been so cathartic, cleansing, instructive as to exactly who is who and what the lines are. And our prayer is that we indeed hearken to Moshe's words in this week's Torah portion and understand there's only one blessing and there's only one curse, because we are in the land now. And hopefully we will not imitate the heathens and the idolaters that we are being warned against here in the land of Israel, and we will go the course and go the distance and stay with the program of the blessing, of keeping commandments in the land of Israel, because that's really the protective edge. Stay with us. Temple Talk, Israel National Radio. We'll be right back.
Shalom and welcome back. Temple Talk, Israel National Radio, UniversalTorah.com, the Temple Institute's very own YouTube channel. Today is the 23rd day of the month of Av, Menachem Av, the Comforting Father, the 19th day of the month of August 2014, and of course the Hebrew year being 5774. And as you mentioned, Rabbi, earlier, next Tuesday, Wednesday are the days of Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month of Elul, which is the ultimate month of the year, before, of course, the new year, Rosh Hashanah, which begins with Tishrei. Rabbi, you mentioned earlier, you were sort of describing the book of Devarim, Moshe's words, where he's coming from, and all the different facets of the book. And one of the things you mentioned was prophecy. And there's a pasuk, a verse, in the very first section of this week's parsha, Re'eh, which always struck me kind of funny. But in recent years, I've begun to understand it. And it really is, in an unusual way, it is really words of prophecy. When, as you mentioned earlier again, Moshe was describing how you have to destroy, you have to shatter in verse 3 of chapter 12. It says you have to shatter their altars and break their
pillars,
sivot on their pillars and their ashreim, their what's an asher?
Their sacred trees,
etc., etc. And burn. They have to burn them in fire, and etc., etc. And then it says, and then it closes. The verse closes with ibadatim et shema mina makom hahu, and destroy their name from that place.
Obliterate their names.
Obliterate their name from that place. And then it says, a very short verse. It says, Lo tasun ken, Hashem Elokechem, and don't do that to Hashem your God. Duh. We shouldn't destroy the altars of Hashem our God. God forbid. Why are you telling us that? And only in recent years has it become clear to me that duh is a duh that we really need, because what's happening on the Temple Mount these days is precisely that. It's the destruction of the sacred structure and sacred place that is the Temple Mount, that is the place of the Holy Temple, and we somehow, for some reason, we need to be told very clearly that we're not supposed to do that there. We're not supposed to destroy those things. Again, duh, but it seems that we need that reminder. The other thing that I think is very, very, very moving, and just another example of the exquisite timing of the yearly Torah reading and the seasons of the year, is that 2 weeks ago, exactly 2 weeks ago, was Tisha B'Av. And, of course, the day of commemorating the destruction of the first Holy Temple and the second Holy Temple. And almost immediately after that, after not having heard much about the Mishkan, about the tabernacle for so long, it was the book of Exodus was all about the tabernacle. And of course, the book of Leviticus was all about what happens inside the tabernacle, the work of the Kohanim. And even the book of Numbers opens with the inauguration of the tabernacle and the way that the encampments of the different tribes are set around the tabernacle, etc., etc. But since that point, we really haven't heard much about that. And now all of a sudden is this mention of the Mikdash, of the place that God will choose. And all of a sudden, just like we have the 7 prophetic readings, the Haftorah readings that follow Tisha B'Av, which are prophetic readings that we read on Shabbat of comfort. This also comes to comfort us and to encourage us and to remind us that, yes, you did mourn the destruction, but that's not Sof Pasuk, that's not the end of the story. And people, that's not what it's all about. The Holy Temple, that place was chosen, it's still there, the commandment's still intact, and you still need to do it. And by the way, people, children of God, as we approach the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, etc., and certainly the pilgrimage festival of Sukkot, that's what it's all about. This Holy Temple is more relevant than ever. And just in case you thought that we're going to let it, sort of slip quietly, gently into the night, that's not the case. And on the one hand, this is a comfort that it's still viable and intact. And yes, we mourned, but we still have the Holy Temple. We just need to build it. And secondly, all you people who thought that you could, quote, get away with a few weeks of breastfeeding over the Holy Temple and then, clean it from your books for the rest of the year. No, that's not the case. This is still part of God's program. It always was and always will be. And that location that's so coyly referred to in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, but not mentioned by name, well, we all know, as you mentioned before, Rabbi, that's the place, the Temple Mount. And there's no playing around that. You got to do it. You got to step up to the plate.
And speaking of that location, which is referred to in our Torah portion this week, Parashat Re'eh, as the place that I will choose, a group of people did mention it by name and adopted a resolution on July 16th, 2014, which happened to be the 18th day of Tammuz, the day after the fast of the 17th of Tammuz. And I don't know if we have acknowledged that yet, if we have had a moment even to report about that. Some people have heard about it, and I think we did post about it on Facebook, but I want to officially and formally express our appreciation and admiration for the RCA, the Rabbinical Council of America, which is an important organization of rabbis in America. It's an Orthodox organization, and on July 16th, 2014, they actually passed a resolution regarding Jewish prayer on Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, which is pretty amazing. And I'll tell you why it's amazing. And I want to read it. I'm reading it from their website, which is actually www.rabbis.org. The resolution reads as follows. Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, is Judaism's holiest site and the focal point of Jewish worship, and has been so continuously for thousands of years. Given that Har HaBayit is presently under the control of the State of Israel, the membership of the Rabbinical Council of America, representing over 1,000 Orthodox rabbis throughout the United States, Canada, Israel, and beyond, adopted a resolution by a direct vote of the RCA membership imploring Israel to, quote, to accommodate Jews who wish to pray on the Temple Mount, end quote. Formally adopted by a direct vote of the RCA membership, the full text of 2014 resolution, Jewish prayer on Har HaBayit, in parentheses, the Temple Mount, states, whereas Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, is Judaism's holiest site and the focal point of Jewish worship, and has been so continuously for thousands of years, and whereas the Jewish State of Israel presently controls the Temple Mount, therefore the Rabbinical Council of America implores the government of the State of Israel to accommodate Jews who wish to pray on the Temple Mount. This actually is nuclear as an event, because we have been cajoling, pleading,
exhorting,
lambasting, and jumping up and down for decades, trying to get people's attention about the travesty of justice on the Temple Mount, about the terrible inequality, lack of religious freedom, lack of democracy, and in general, total degradation of the Torah of Israel and the Jewish people in the State of Israel, in the capital of the State of Israel, on the holiest place for the Jewish people. And the RCA is there's that word, begins with an M, mainstream organization. So even if you consider the Temple Institute to be temple freaks, extremists, etc., which we are, happily and proudly, the RCA are regular, nice, normal people that you wouldn't be afraid to talk to if you saw them standing on the street and ask them what time it is. Whereas someone from the Temple Institute, you might say, oh, I'm not going to ask him what time it is because he's going to start ranting and raving about the temple. But here, the RCA has passed a resolution imploring the government of Israel to accommodate Jewish prayer on the Temple Mount, and that makes us extremely pleased and happy, because it shows that the Jewish people are beginning to wake up and understand the importance of this. It shows that all the education, all the activism, all the prayer, all the work that we are doing over all of these years is beginning to seep in. And let me also state that I'm very, very proud, and I'm expressing deep admiration for the members of this body who took this stand, because it's not a popular stand, because it isn't conventional in the United States, because it goes against the fictitious rabbinical ban that people are always citing about, that we can't go on the Temple Mount. And of course that is ridiculous, because if you know where to go, and it's very, very easy to learn seriously and with integrity and with a proper attitude, you can learn exactly where to go on the Temple Mount. And so you can't use this myth of we don't know where to go and you can't go there until Mashiach comes, blah, 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 because if you want Mashiach to come, then go to the Temple Mount is what I would say. But I would say also just go because it's the right thing to do, and go and leave Mashiach out of it. Go if you love Hashem, then you should be going there. And here comes this important mainstream organization and says, this isn't Beseder, this isn't right. And so hats off to the RCA for standing up for the beleaguered Temple Mount. And that is a sign of the times, and it shows that it's not over. and that the Jewish people are really returning to the Temple Mount, as we have been telling you. And I couldn't be more emphatic and more appreciative of this tremendously significant move. Speaking of prophecy, Yitzchak, and speaking of the 7 weeks of comfort that are referred to by the sages, the 7 prophetic readings that fall between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah are special readings that are very beautiful and that are comforting the people of Israel in this period. Last week's Haftarah, last week's prophetic reading for Parashat Ekev was actually taken from the book of Isaiah, from chapter 49 and beginning with verse 14, where we read, Zion said, Zion, that's us by the way, Hashem has forsaken me, my Lord has forgotten me. And then the prophet, speaking in the name of God, rhetorically asks, can a woman forget her baby, or not feel compassion for the child of her womb? Even these may forget, but I would not forget you. And the parsha goes on and on, talking about beautiful promises regarding the return of Israel to their land, the rebuilding of the land, and the reinstitution of Israel. And then in this week's Torah portion, for Parshat Re'eh, we read in Isaiah in chapter 59, sing out, O barren one who has not given birth, break into glad song and be jubilant, you who have not been in birth travail, for the children of the desolate, which means Jerusalem, will outnumber the children of the inhabited ones, said Hashem. And it goes on, emphasizing how Hashem has not forgiven us, has not forgotten us, how Israel might have felt alone and forsaken, but Hashem is returning to his people, and how Israel has been afflicted and not consoled, but now there's in a prophetic reference to Jerusalem in the future. The prophet talks about how I will set down gems as your flooring stone and lay your foundation with sapphires, and I will set your window frames with ruby, and all your children will be students of Hashem, and your children's peace will be abundant. And these prophecies also are a reflection, in my opinion, of the idea that I was trying to convey in the last 2 minutes of the first half of our program. Again, that one of the things that has come to light, that has come to pass, that is the most evident and emphasized for many people the past few weeks, is we have seen some sort of what some might describe as almost a nightmarish or Orwellian vision of an isolated Israel. Goodness, the president of Costa Rica didn't come. And didn't come for a visit. And what about all the rock stars who had to cancel and didn't come to Israel? And what about the fact that Great Britain and Spain, to name 2 countries, are had made some sort of partial arms embargo, and the fact that the United States of America, our greatest ally, said that they're going to be reviewing arms sales to Israel, and various other moves, Galilean or not, to isolate Israel on the international stage, all to put up the pressure. And the images on social media that have already been proven to be false, so many images that actually happened in Syria, and all sorts of other cynical manipulation of the Arab media, and the whole expose that even major media like CNN have been discussing the fact that, yes, it's true, Hamas uses human shields. Yawn. So what? Yeah, Hamas uses babies as human shields. Okay, we admit it. And the fact that journalists are admitting that they were intimidated and threatened and weren't allowed to tell the truth about what was going on.
I think even Hamas has come out and admitted as much.
And all this stuff, it just rolls over me. But you know what? One thing that's coming out so strong is like we are so out there by ourselves. So you could look at it that way. You could see it that way, that we are tossed and turned. Isaiah says right here in Isaiah 54, "O afflicted, storm-tossed one, one who has not been consoled." That's such an imagery of what we've been going through these past few weeks in the international stage. We are afflicted. We are storm-tossed. We are being buffeted about in the flotsam and jetsam of international diplomacy. But yet, earlier on, right here in chapter 54, Hashem compares those very waters to the waters of Noah, and says, "For like the waters of Noah this shall be to me. Just as I swore that the waters of Noah would never again pass over the earth, so have I sworn not to be wrathful with you, nor to rebuke you. For the mountains may be moved, and the hills may falter." In fact, I think there was an earthquake in Iraq yesterday. "But my kindness shall not be removed from you, and my covenant of peace shall not falter, said the one who shows you mercy." Who? John Kerry? Who? Obama? Who? George Galloway? No. Said the one who shows you mercy, Hashem. So what I'm saying is, yeah, we've been storm-tossed and afflicted, but the fact is, in this very Torah portion of Parashat Re'eh, I think I read this, but I'll just read it again. I hate to rub it in to George Galloway and his Zion-free city of Bradford?
No, I don't know.
Something like that. "You are children to Hashem, your God. You shall not cut yourselves, and you shall not make a bald spot between your eyes for a dead person." And all these people that are coming against Israel and rattling their sabers, what was that? We already mentioned this. Was it? It's Hamlet, isn't it? "Shake now thy gory locks at me."
There you go.
"And watch me as I shake." Anyway, I just know the parody in James Thurber. But anyway, you're all dead, is what I'm trying to say. And we're not going to cut ourselves over you. We're not going to make a bald spot over your ridiculous foreign policy. Don't come and visit me. The president of Costa Rica didn't come. I'm shaking. What are we going to do? The president of Costa Rica didn't come. Britain and Spain, they're not going to sell us arms. They're all so angry that we're surviving. They're so angry that we exiled 10,000 of our children and dug up the graves of their dead and destroyed 32 synagogues and gave Gaza over to the terrorists. And now they're trying to kill us, and we came against them. And they're so angry at us and isolating us so much. But Hashem says, "I have chosen you. You are a holy people. I have chosen you for myself to be a treasured people from among all the peoples on the face of the earth. Sue me." Well, I guess you are. I guess you are suing. But the fact is, there is a message here. And the message is, there is a blessing and there is a curse. And Moshe saw all this. He saw us getting ready to come into the land. And he said, there's only one program. Don't be like all those people. Get rid of all the idolatry and hearken to the commandments. And that in itself is the blessing. And so it's like, if you have like the sensitivity of a lug wrench, you could see that everything in the Torah is alive all around us.
Rabbi, as a closing mashal, a little parable, I was at a wedding last night. A very good friend of ours whose daughter got married, and his brother, who's Orthodox Jew from the United States, lives in a Jewish community in the United States, and I don't think it's been quite a number of years since he's been to Israel last time, and he went up to the Temple Mount yesterday. It was the first time he went up, and I asked him at the wedding how it went, and he said it was amazing. He said, at one point some guy was mishtachaveh, he prostrated himself, and another woman opened up her bag, and she had fruit that she handed out to people. We all made blessings. I said, and the police didn't bother you? He said, no. And I said, and were the Muslims screaming in your faces the whole time? He goes, yes, absolutely. But he said, but it was so amazing. This is a person who's never been up. He's an American Jew of that meant that framework, and he went up and. We report a lot about the harassment because it's important. People need to know it, and we need to change it. But for anybody who thinks, I'd like to go up, but I'm not sure, this should be a lesson. He went up, and that's not what he took home with him. What he took home with him was the amazing spiritual uplift that he received there, and the camaraderie and unity that he felt with his fellow worshipers on the Temple Mount. That is so important for everybody to hear that. And as we conclude today's broadcast, I'd like to mention once again, Rabbi, whose who's rolling his eyes and furrowing his eyebrows.
No, I wasn't. I was just
Oh,
looking
you
to see how much
absolutely!
time we
I
have.
caught you. I'd like to mention our Indiegogo campaign, which, as of this date, which I think we're 22 days into our 60-day campaign, we've raised almost $50,000, almost 50% of our goal. And what's the purpose of that goal? That money? It's to move forward with blueprints for the Holy Temple, and this is a project that is not make-believe. It's not, we're not talking about making a painting of the Holy Temple. We're talking about blueprints for building the Holy Temple.
Hands-on preparation. And I got a beautiful Facebook message from a young couple that live here in Jerusalem, Orthodox Jews. And it was just like such a beautiful message. It said, the lady said, my husband is a contractor. He owns his own construction firm. And please keep us in mind because we would like to work on building the Holy Temple. And listen, that's the real thing. That's the real thing.
Not only the children are ready, but even the
Even
adults
the adults
are
are
ready.
getting ready.
The contractors are ready. The architects are ready. The people are ready. It's about to happen. Once again, take a moment and check out our Indiegogo campaign, which you can find on the Temple Institute's Facebook page, even our YouTube channel, even our website, and even our Twitter tweets are all full of it because it's very important. This is not a gimmick, and it's not make-believe. It's raising money
for opportunity for everyone to participate.
There you go. Participate in preparation for the building of the Holy Temple. Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.